Welcome to Game Time Picks with KIV. Kelly Stewart here on this beautiful Tuesday evening, 6 o'clock East Coast, every single Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Shout out to those on the West Coast joining us. I'm sure you guys should be working. Tonight it's just going to be me and Brian Power, so let's bring him in at Brian Power _wins on X and Brian Power WT on Instagram. I always screw this up, but it's hard to remember all these guys. Thank you to Brian for hanging out with me tonight. We're going to run through this entire college basketball slate. If you guys have a question for us, whether it be about college basketball handicapping, feel free to drop it. If you guys have a question about a game, feel free to drop it. Brian, before we get started, how many games have you bet tonight? I've got 3.
5. 20% of the card. Kelly, thank you for having me on, of course. And yep, it's just me, solo guest. And why have 2 guests when your one guest volunteers to say, hey, you know what? I will talk about every game on the board if need be tonight, all 25. I think the consensus seems to be, Kelly. I mean, you have 3 bets, I have 5. I know a lot of people are betting a lot. This is one of the best college cards of the year. Tons of action, tons of, trends and systems that fit things we like to do. So I am ready, man, for a profitable Tuesday. I hope at least one of these 5 games that I bet tonight is as easy as Virginia Tech was last night. There's nothing like checking that score for the first time and saying, wow, I think this is going to win. And
Yeah, I was in the middle of cooking dinner. I think it was 13-11. I put the phone on the charger, went to cooking, came back. It was halftime up, and it was just a no sweat winner. Unlike Houston that I bet the night prior, laid 9, closed 7.5, lands 8. I will say this, friend of the program, Joey Romano, told me, hey, you should bet Houston first half. I waited. I kind of forgot after he had said it. I looked, I was like, oh, there's a 4.5. I'll lay it. So I got very lucky there to not push. So you got to take the good with the bad. And congrats to you on having the cojones to bet my Kansas State Wildcats. I did repost your video on X and Instagram, and I couldn't bet that team, even at 9.5. I'm texting my buddy Clint. Welcome to the chat. Clint's in the chat right now, and he said, Kelly, are you going to do it? I was like, I just don't trust this team. I said, I made the game 6.5. Of course, BP at land 6. And that was all she wrote. K-State's going to be going to the NIT. Now, if there's a game that you have for sale over at Wagertalk and you don't want to talk about it, just tell me. I'll give my synopsis and you don't have to. Or if you'd like to share a client play with the 39 people in the chat as of right now, you let me know. We're going to get to all your guys' questions. So if you guys have any, we'll go there. But hey, I got to talk to you about this one first. Connecticut at Creighton. If you guys watch the Kelly and Murray show, Brian Power, I'm very frustrated. The audience voted for us to have a futures bet on UConn. John Murray walked down to the Circa. We got plus 750. And then they just absolutely throttled Marquette. Now it's just way low. I think there's plus 500s out there in the marketplace. So, fine. Great futures bet. But I wanted something like a 20-1. You know who I wanted to bet on? This Creighton team, Brian Power. Let's talk about it. They're catching 3 tonight at home to Connecticut. What do I like about Creighton? That's right. They make buckets. They have a really solid offense. They don't turn the ball over. They can knock down threes. But those little jumpers, those easy layups, those points in the paint, that is what this team does best. UConn plays slow. They're methodical. They're on a 14-game win streak. They have one of the best offenses in the country. They also can get those points in the paint. They have a solid defense. Dan Hurley's team won it last year. Brian Power, I took the 3 with Creighton. All of my friends group said, Kelly, there's still a 3. You still have a 3 available. Take it. I'm like, God, I don't want to do this after I just championed not to bet UConn.
I'm with you, Kelly. I also bet Creighton plus 3. This is one of my 5 bets, and I have no problem talking about it. I was very passionate about this play on the college basketball show with my good friend, Joe Ranieri, and your good friend as well this afternoon. Look, you talk about the win that UConn had over the weekend against Marquette. It was the largest win in the history of the AP poll between 2 top 5 teams. So if there was ever a time to sell high on UConn, Kelly, I think it's tonight, because the win solidifies them as the first unanimous number 1 that we've had all season. It's their 6th straight week in the top spot, their longest time spent at number 1 since the national championship team of 1998, 1999. And tonight, UConn's trying to make a little bit more history because, and this shocked me when I was breaking down this game, no Big East team in history has won 15 straight conference games. UConn has won 14 straight after losing the conference opener. And I like Creighton too, Kelly. I like how they can defend. They defended UConn well in the first meeting. 35% shooting overall, 26% for three, and that was in Stores. This is in Omaha, where Creighton, they shoot the three a lot better. We're talking 37% from behind the arc at home. They've got the bigs you need to neutralize UConn, and neutralize, maybe that's a bit of a stretch, at least slow down UConn offensively. Creighton's a good home team too, 11-2 straight up in Omaha. They crushed Butler on the road over the weekend. And oh, by the way, UConn's never won here. 0-3 straight up all time in Omaha. Give me Creighton +3. St. John's closed +2.5 against Creighton, or against UConn, pardon me. We all know Creighton's better. I mean, obviously St. John's and UConn, if they played tomorrow, that line would not be 2.5, especially if Rick Pitino keeps talking about his team the way he has. But Creighton should obviously be getting fewer points than St. John's did. Come on.
Shout out to the YouTube Shorts. We're doing that now as well here at Wager Talk. So live here on Instagram, live on YouTube Shorts. I'm manning the chat over here on Instagram, and shout out to our producer Eric for manning the YouTube chat. All right, this is one actually I saw you give a video on. So give me a quick synopsis on the UCF West Virginia game. Right now, if you guys go to the Wager Talk Instagram page, you can watch Brian's whole breakdown. But give me a quick one here. This one's puzzling, Brian. UCF, 2.5-point road favorite here to the lowly, worst last place West Virginia Mountaineers. This is a tough one. This is not a West Virginia team I'm looking to back, but I cannot lay it here on the road.
No, and so something I neglected to mention in my breakdown, there was so much to talk about in that game, is it's the first time tonight that Creighton is a home dog all season. I bring that up now because tonight is the first time also that UCF is a road favorite all season. And I get, Kelly, what you're saying. West Virginia, they are the lowest rated team in the Big 12. They're a difficult team to back. It's still Morgantown, though, and that's where all 8 of the Mountaineers' straight-up victories have come this season. I know they're in poor form this month, 4 straight double-digit losses, but here's the thing. If you look at UCF, who's lost 3 straight, you're going to say, oh, well, they've been losing closer than West Virginia has. Well, they've been down by double digits in each of those last 3 games before kind of mounting futile rallies to make the final margin maybe closer than the game ought to be. I like WVU here tonight. I think this is a buy low spot on the Nears. It's a revenge spot as well. Look at the teams who West Virginia's played recently as well. They played BYU, Texas, TCU, and Baylor. Those are all, top tier teams in the Big 12. UCF, they're in the bottom 4. No way they should be laying points in Morgantown, a tough place to play. They've gone to Provo, back home, now up to Morgantown. That's a lot of travel. I'm on the Nears.
Yeah, another game that I think we're both on here would be BYU. Laid 3.5 earlier today. It's up at 4 pretty much across the board on the Wager Talk odds screen. Total 154. This is just a very basic system. My buddy Chris put me onto this one. He's been following it for the last couple of years, and I was looking for his X. Is that what we call it? Are you Xing instead of tweeting? I don't even know anymore, Brian Power, what exactly it's called. But he put out an X post underneath mine, updating everybody. I will find it. I believe I retweeted it the other night. In regards to ranked versus ranked, lay it with the home team. That was why we played Houston last night. As I mentioned, the closing line did very well. The opening line, not so much, but I did lay 3.5 tonight with the Cougs. Talk to me about this one.
It's a get-right spot for BYU. So BYU's been an analytical darling all season. They got as high as top 5 in the Ken Pom ratings. Now, we all know that their non-conference schedule is not particularly strong, and you can, build up a strong analytical profile by just blowing out bad teams, and that's what BYU did. We were all very interested to see how they would do as they make the transition to the Big 12, their first year in that conference. And it's been hit or miss. It's honestly been kind of what I thought, in the sense that they struggle when they go on the road, but they're pretty good at home. And it makes sense. You talk about the travel, okay? We mentioned it with UCF another of the Big 12 newcomers. BYU is a geographical outpost in the Big 12, Kelly. I mean, they're farther west, so there's a lot of travel when they hit the road. And it was an awful loss at Joe Ranieri's Oklahoma State Cowboys over the weekend. I don't want to say it's inexcusable, but that's a game they should win. But they're back in Provo tonight. Baylor, look, 3-point variance. If you could tell me how it's going to go before the game, we'd all be a lot richer. But I don't think Baylor can continue to shoot as well as they have from three the rest of the season. They're on the road. When do teams regress from downtown? It's usually on the road. When these teams played the first time, okay, BYU lost, but in Waco, they were up 6 at the half. They wound up 2-1 disadvantage in free throw attempts. I like BYU too. The ranked versus ranked trend, it's 67% now ATS. Maybe we can call last night a push just because the opening line didn't cover, closing line did. So let's just throw it out. It was 22-11 ATS going into last night. 67% sounds pretty darn good to me.
It does, and that's why I will not discredit it. As you mentioned, buy low spot on BYU off that ugly Saturday loss to Oklahoma State that, frankly, as a K-State fan, I thank them for, because my team also lost in Stillwater, and they just got obliterated for that loss. A really solid BYU team, but not as good away from the Marriott Center.
Yes. And, just as we're talking BYU, I just wanted to bring up, people could check out the Power 5, the latest edition dropped on Wagertalk TV. I bring that up right now because I talked about BYU. They were my team that I think is ranked too low. I'm still a believer in this team. I still think they're a top 15, at least they have a top 15 profile. But every Monday now on the Power 5, we analyze the latest AP top 25, tell you who I think's ranked too low, who's ranked too high, who shouldn't be ranked at all, and who, a team that isn't ranked that I think should be in the top 25. We look at the betting value, where it might be the rest of the week, give you a free play. It's a real fun time. People can check that out.
I love that. Over on the Wagertalk Wagertalk YouTube channel. I need a coffee. Yes, it is 6 p.m. here on the East Coast. Brian Power 5, always great information there. He also tweets out the link to that video. The chat box wants to know, there must be some Ohio natives here, like the Bobcats tonight, Brian. I need some action, baby. Ohio is a 3.5-point favorite at home to Kent State. Total 148. I got nothing here, Brian Power. I do not follow Maction basketball.
Well, shame on you. The MAC is the standard bearer in the Midwest. But anyway, look, OU, a very tough loss last Friday at Toledo. They had Toledo dead to rights. I was watching the first half. I said, what a big win this is going to be, after the disappointing loss in the MAC Sunbelt Challenge that I don't think anyone even knew took place. But they blew it in the second half. And Kent State is way down this year. This was a team that was impossible to beat at home. They've lost, I think, 6 home games this year, which is just shocking. That's, 6 more than they lost all of last year. But I don't know. With the line ticking up from 3 to 3.5, I am worried about, would be worried about laying it with my alma mater down in Athens. But I do think they're the better team than Kent State this year. But defensively, they've been leaky. They gave up 100 points to Arkansas State in that MAC Sunbelt Challenge before giving up a boatload to Toledo, too. So that's a concern I have with the Bobcats.
All right, let's talk Maryland at Wisconsin. Wisconsin was on an absolute tear. Just rocking and rolling. It felt like that kind of weird loss at Penn State, then got right back on it at home, and now have dropped 5 of their last 6. Shout out to my buddy Gary, who texts me during that Michigan State game and goes, shame on you. This is a different Wisconsin team. And shout out to Gary. He's not very happy about his Badgers right now. Current line looks to be about 7.5 on the Wagertalk odds screen here. Brian, are we laying it? Or are we taking the points here with the Terps?
Look, this is ugly too, but that's generally the plays I gravitate towards. You mentioned losing 5 of 6, Kelly. Wisconsin, well, they're 0-6 against the number during that stretch as well. Look, you talk about the buy. I mention it constantly, the buy low, sell high principles. People, what was it, a month ago, were talking about Wisconsin as a possible 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. I thought that was nonsense. I was like, this is not a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. But now things have come full circle where I think the value is a little low. Look, anyone who's seen Maryland play this year, they know what I'm about to say. This team cannot shoot. They are horrific from 3-point range. They're just laying brick after brick after brick. I think they're one of the 20 worst 3-point shooting teams in the country. We're talking about 28% when they hit the highway. So I think it's a buy low spot on Wisconsin here. I would lay it with the Badgers. What better thing to do than lay multiple possessions with a team that hasn't covered since January?
That is rather disgusting. I'm going to lay points with a different team instead. Brian Power, Utah State, 2.5-point favorites to, well, a ranked team in San Diego State, currently number 19 in the country. I had some reservations at first with Utah State. They've been a little frustrating at times, especially from three. They just got the doors blown off them at Colorado State. San Diego State, after that overtime loss versus Nevada, rattled off a pair of nice home wins over Colorado State and New Mexico State. I want to know your thoughts. This is a system play, so I did play it, but this was not one that I really enjoyed laying it with.
Okay, I think like everybody else, I was stunned at the job that Danny Sprinkle has done with Utah State. I did not expect this whatsoever. I was very skeptical of them. I bet against them. I've had success. But the Mountain West Conference, Kelly, is the circle of life. Here's what happens, okay? A team, they win a couple games at home. They climb into the top 25. Then they go on the road the next week. They're ranked. They're facing an unranked team, and they lose. And true to form, I think San Diego State's going to lose tonight. I haven't said anything controversial yet on the show, I don't think, so why not? So let's do it now.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm as high on the Mountain West in general as everybody else is. I know everyone's falling in love with this conference. I'm going to tell people to exercise caution. I'm old enough to remember that this is a league that people always seem to fall in love with going into the tournament, and save for last year when San Diego State made its incredible run, they always fall on their face in the tournament, and it's a deep league. I think in terms of the top six, certainly the Big 12 is stronger. I don't know who else, maybe the Big East, but it's got a strong top six. But I don't think any Mountain West team is one of the 25 best teams in America. I'm just going to say that right now. I certainly don't think San Diego State deserves to be in the top 20. They're horrible on the road, 2-8 against the number, and that includes, Kelly, not one, but 2 losses as a ranked team getting points to an unranked host. Like I said, circle of life, that's what the Mountain West is. Utah State has revenge. It's probably their time to exact it tonight in Logan.
Fun fact, since I started writing for the Las Vegas Review Journal in 2013, one of my favorite tournament bets at the Superbook every single year was Mountain West under tournament wins. I think it cashed like 8 of the last 9. It was just awesome. San Diego State, on the other hand, last year helped me win a ton of money in my Calcutta, so I will not slander them, but I hope they lose tonight. Now, here's a little handicapping question, BP. Just because the chat box got a little quiet on me, where the hell did everybody go? I do have 2 more games I want to touch on before I let you go, but I wanted to pull up the odd screen here and talk to you the difference about now at 3. Right? So now we're sitting at 3, which is a key number in football, not necessarily in basketball. If you didn't lay the 2.5 and now it's 3, is it smarter? Is it more conducive? Is it more plus EV to lay the 155 here? And I always go back and forth with people on the unranked home favorite. And a lot of guys like to play the money line. I usually don't lay more than minus 140. At that point, I get a little uneasy. I'd rather just lay the points minus 110, but I need to know your thoughts and how maybe we don't have to use this game as an example, but what you traditionally do with these unranked home favorites.
I trust my handicap is what I'm going to do. And if you like them at 2.5, do you really hate them at 3 is what I would say. I typically, Kelly, like you, don't gravitate towards the money line. The number of times in college basketball where I played the money line and it was a winner when laying the points would not have been when the spread is 3 or less. I could probably count that on like one hand over the last, 5, 6, 7. It doesn't happen very often. So honestly, I don't think it is. If you trust your handicap and like, if you really, really believe, hey, I like them at 2. I like them at 2.5. I don't think there's a reason to get scared off necessarily by 3 or gravitate towards the money line. Like you minus 150. I don't know. when they win by 10, you're kicking yourselves. And, Trig and I talk about this all the time. Tonight is not the most shining example of this, but these Mountain West games, I think there's going to be one tomorrow with New Mexico against Colorado State, where the unranked team is often, you can't even play the money line. They're, -5, -5.5, you could play the money line, but I wouldn't recommend it. And I'm like, yeah, is that a great number? No, but I trust the handicap, I trust the spot, and I say, you know what? I think they're going to cover no matter obviously there is a breaking point, but no, I'm a spread guy, not necessarily a money line guy, and I think I'll stick that way moving forward.
All right. Appreciate your insight there. We've got a couple more games. The chat box wants to hit about 7 more minutes. If you guys keep it going, drop any questions in here. I love you guys too. Thank you. Appreciate it. Shout out to Carmine for his 2-0 last night. That was awesome. Catching that plus 125 early, so I got to go to bed. And let's go Michigan State laying a boatload of points, 9.5 currently over Iowa, 154.5. This was just almost jarring to me, BP, that I almost had to start to look at Iowa to make a case for Iowa here. We know they're one of the fastest teams in college basketball. We know that they usually play clean basketball, and by that I mean they don't turn the ball over. They make their free throws. What are we looking at here? This is a Sparty team that I feel like has kind of been all over this year, right? They went on a little run preseason after beating Baylor on that neutral court, then kind of faltered to a Northwestern team. Illinois loses to Minnesota, and now they've rattled off 3 straight. This team plays slow. They have great defense. They're very methodical, and we know they can bang down their 3-point shots. But 9.5? Is this not just a little weird? Maybe I should actually be considering laying the 9.5 because it is so steep.
No, I would not lay it, would be my take on this game. I don't think I could stomach taking Iowa in the spot on the road. They're bad defensively, and it would just make me queasy to take them. But look, I think Michigan State is still a very good team. As a matter of fact, last week on the Power 5, they were my team that I said isn't ranked but should be. Now, I know they've got a lot of losses, and the AP Top 25 is a reflective poll, whereas I look at things in more of a predictive manner, like, hey, this is what I think is going to happen moving forward. Michigan State is still, I believe, top 16 in KenPom. So and they're and obviously the market believes in them by making them such a big favorite here. I too, Kelly, was surprised by this number, but then I looked. There have been 3, make it 4 times actually, that Michigan State has been laying more than this number in Big Ten play. They covered 3 of those 4. They blew out Penn State by 31. They blew out Rutgers by 18. They did not cover against Minnesota, but they won by 10, laying 12. Nobody covered. I'm so sick of this Minnesota team. But then they blew out Michigan as well. So Sparty has shown they can cover a big number, and Iowa under Fran McCaffrey has never shown any ability to play defense on the road, so that would scare me off the dog here, but I certainly would not lay it with Sparty.
All right, I think I have no choice but to lay it here with the Massachusetts Minutemen and one of my favorite head coaches, Frank Martin. Am I crazy? The chat box is asking about this question. I have not got to watch that much UMass basketball. Full disclosure, I know they're off an ugly away loss, last second loss. I think they were a 6-point favorite to LaSalle, lose the game outright. Now you have a VCU team. They're all of a sudden kind of a square dog in this perception. I've seen quite a few people on this VCU team, not discrediting what we've seen from them over the last few weeks, but it seems like a buy low spot, Brian Power.
Yeah, and it's probably a sell high on VCU as well, who has, I think, only failed to win one of its last 10 games or something like that. Here's what's interesting about that. The setup for tonight's game is eerily similar to the last time VCU lost. When was the last time VCU lost? It was January 30th at St. Bonaventure. They were a road underdog, 4 points. They lose by 5. It was the second of 2 straight road games. What is tonight? The second of 2 straight road games, and they're a road underdog. I agree. It is buy low UMass, sell high VCU here, and it is 9-1 straight up ATS. The last 10 for Virginia Commonwealth, to be exact.
All right, we've got about 3 more minutes left. The chat box wants to know about Villanova laying 6.5 tonight at home to a Butler team that, well, it's not much to write home about. Butler has just went through a couple of really ugly stretches back in December and January. Now they're in an ugly stretch here in February. But is that because they played UConn, Providence, Marquette, and Creighton?
Yeah, I'm a believer still in Villanova. I look at their schedule coming up. Okay, they're at UConn this weekend, which isn't great. But other than that, they've got Georgetown, Providence, Seton Hall, and this game. This is a revenge spot for a double overtime loss where they led by 9 at halftime. They only got 9 free throws in that one, Kelly, at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Butler had 22 free throw attempts. That helps. Obviously, a little home cooking, perhaps. I'm not crazy about laying it here with Villanova.
Okay, so the chat box wants to know, and this is exactly what I should have more or less alluded to, but I didn't say it. Are they looking ahead to UConn? This is just a Butler team. It seems like a very flat spot for Villanova.
I mean, the revenge maybe a little bit, but yeah, you're right. The players probably care more about that UConn game. I wouldn't lay it. Look, I laid it with Villanova against Seton Hall when they played just an insane game. Absolutely blew the Pirates out of the water. That was where the best value was there. It's a similar number here. Butler and Seton Hall, I guess they're similar teams. But, we've been talking buy low, sell high, like for 30 minutes here. So I can't possibly endorse Villanova because Villanova's off a couple big wins. And what happened to Butler? I mentioned they got their doors blown off at home by Creighton. I would not lay it here. Villanova, before that loss earlier in the year, had Butler's number, though. Through the years, at least, I should say at least here at home, they've had their number 8-2 ATS last 10 at home against Butler.
All right, Brian Power, 30 seconds before we end the show. What do you got over at Wagertalk? Where can people find the Power 5?
You can find it on the Wagertalk YouTube channel, of course. And look, I mentioned earlier about a half hour ago, Monday's play could not have gone any easier. It was on Virginia Tech. Absolutely blew the doors off Virginia on the Power 5. I said Virginia had absolutely zero business being in the top 25. That was just completely fraudulent. And what do you know? They got their doors blown off. Tonight, I've got 2 best bets leading the 5-game card. You can get those for just $29, WT.buzz/BP. You see it on the page right there. You can get the complete 5-game card as well for $39 at the same place, WT.buzz/BP. Also, if you want to lock in long-term, pretty good idea. I'm up over 80 units in NBA and college combined going back 12 months.
Ask Joe Ranieri how his hospital bed is doing. Joe Ranieri is over here asking about people's hair when he needs to be worried about getting the Vegas flu, and he didn't even go to Vegas.
Oh, there! I love when I can hear Joe in my earphone. He breaks back in. Joe's always so proud of himself. That's the second time in a row in IG he got me. Yes, this is my real hair, Joe, by the way.
Do you perm it?
No, I don't perm it. I don't do anything to it. This is how it looks like out of the shower.
We have entirely too much fun here at Wagertalk. He is Brian Power at Brian Power WT. Make sure you guys are following him on Instagram. He has made all of my Instagram media relations dreams come true. He actually follows everything I ask from him. So make sure you guys give him a follow, reward him for all of his hard work and those free plays that he gives out every single day here on the Wagertalk Instagram channel. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, with my good friend Adam Trigger joining us.